You're sitting there late at night, scrolling through listings you can't quite afford, doing the math over and over again, like somehow the numbers might change if you look at them long enough. The price, the interest rate, the monthly payment, and then that quiet question creeps in. How is everyone else doing this? Because it feels like they figured something out, something you missed. People your age are posting keys, smiling in empty living rooms, talking about finally making it happen. Meanwhile, you're stuck between renting something that doesn't feel like yours and buying something that feels just out of reach. And no one really explains it in a way that makes sense. Not emotionally, not realistically. So let's slow this down and actually walk through what buying your first house in the US really looks like in 2026. Not just the steps, but the thinking behind it. Because the truth is, most people don't struggle with buying a house because they're bad with money. They struggle because they misunderstand what the decision actually is. Here's a part most people get wrong. They think buying a house is just a financial milestone. Save a down payment, get approved, sign papers, done. But that's not what makes this decision difficult. What makes it difficult is that it sits right at the intersection of money, identity, and timing. It's not just, can I afford this? It's, am I ready for this version of my life? And that's where things get messy, because the world around you sends mixed signals. On one hand, you hear that renting is throwing money away. On the other hand, you see interest rates that make ownership feel heavier than ever. You're told real estate builds wealth, but no one talks about how long that actually takes, or how it feels when most of your income suddenly goes toward one fixed payment every single month. So you end up stuck in this mental loop. If I don't buy now, I'll fall behind. But if I do buy now, what if I regret it? And that tension, that's completely normal. Because buying your first house isn't just a transaction. It's a commitment to stability in a world that doesn't always feel stable. So let's break this down in a way that actually reflects reality. Not the polished version, the real version. In 2026, buying a house in the US typically starts with one number that quietly controls everything. Your monthly payment. Not the price of the house, not even the down payment, the monthly payment, because that's the number you'll live with every month for years. And here's where psychology starts to sneak in. Most people shop based on the maximum they're approved for, but approval isn't comfort. Approval is just a ceiling, and ceilings don't tell you how something feels when life gets unpredictable. When your car needs repairs, when groceries go up again, when work gets unstable. So instead of asking, what can I get approved for? A better question is, what payment lets me sleep at night? That's a very different number, and it usually brings more clarity than any calculator. Now let's talk about the down payment, because this is where a lot of people get stuck before they even start. You've probably heard the 20% rule, and for a long time, that was the standard. But in reality, many first-time buyers in the US put down much less, sometimes 3%, sometimes 5%. There are loan programs designed for that. But here's the part that doesn't get talked about enough. A smaller down payment doesn't just mean getting in faster. It also means higher monthly costs. Private mortgage insurance, more interest over time, less breathing room. So the decision isn't just, can I buy with less down? It's, what am I trading off by doing that? Speed versus stability. And again, there's no perfect answer, but understanding the trade-off changes how you feel about the decision. Then there's interest rates. And in 2026, they're not what they used to be. For years, people got used to extremely low rates, so anything higher now feels wrong. But here's the shift most people need to make. Interest rates aren't just numbers, they're timing pressure. They make you feel like you need to act quickly or wait indefinitely. But the reality is, trying to perfectly time interest rates is a losing game for most people, because even if rates drop later, home prices might rise, or your situation might change, or inventory might shrink. So instead of trying to win the timing game, it becomes more about building a position you can live with, a payment that works, a home that fits your life right now, not a theoretical future. And this is where the process becomes less about math and more about clarity, because once you understand your comfortable payment, everything else starts to organize around it. You look at homes differently. You filter options faster. You stop chasing things that stretch you too thin. And you start noticing something interesting. The perfect house starts to matter less, and the right situation starts to matter more. Because the house itself, that's just the surface. What you're really buying is a lifestyle, a commute, a level of financial pressure, a sense of control, or lack of it. Let's talk about the actual steps for a moment, but in a way that connects back to how this feels. First, you'll likely talk to a lender. They'll look at your income, your credit, your debt. They'll give you a number, and again, it will probably be higher than you expected. That can feel exciting at first, but this is where you pause, because this is where people accidentally commit to a life that feels tighter than they imagined. So instead of rushing forward, you step back and ask, do I want to live at that number? Not can I, do I want to? That question alone can save you years of stress. Then comes the search, and this is where emotions really start to show up, because now it's not just numbers anymore. It's kitchens, neighborhoods, space, light. You start picturing your life there, and that's powerful, but it's also where people stretch their budget just a little, because it feels close, because it feels worth it, because it's just a bit more. And this is where discipline matters, quietly, not in a restrictive way, but in a self-respecting way, because the goal isn't just to get the house. The goal is to still feel okay after you get it. Then comes the offer, the inspection, the closing. And yes, those are important, but emotionally, something else is happening underneath. You're moving from flexibility to commitment, from optionality to responsibility, and that shift can feel heavier than expected. Even if you're excited, even if you've planned for it, because you're stepping into something long-term, and long-term decisions always carry a little weight. Now, here's a turning point most people don't expect. Buying your first house doesn't suddenly make you feel secure. Not right away. If anything, it can feel slightly uncomfortable at first. Because now there's something to maintain, something to protect, something that depends on you showing up consistently. And that's not a bad thing. It's just real. Security doesn't come from the house itself. It comes from how manageable your life feels inside it. And this is the mindset shift that changes everything. You stop viewing the house as an achievement and start viewing it as a tool for stability, a tool for building equity over time, a tool for creating a space that's yours, but still just a tool, not your identity, not your success, just one part of your life. And when you see it that way, you make calmer decisions. You avoid overextending. You choose something that fits instead of something that impresses. So what does this actually look like in real life? It looks like giving yourself a buffer, even if it means buying something slightly smaller. It looks like keeping an emergency fund, even after closing, because houses come with surprises, repairs, maintenance, things you didn't think about. And having that cushion changes how those moments feel. They go from stressful to manageable. It also looks like being honest about your timeline. If you're not planning to stay in one place for at least a few years, buying might not make sense yet. And that's okay. Waiting isn't failure. Sometimes it's just better timing. And maybe most importantly, it looks like separating your decision from other people's timelines. Because this is where a lot of quiet pressure comes from. Friends buying, family asking, social media celebrating. It creates this feeling that you're late, but you're not. You're just living a different version of the same process, at your pace, with your numbers, with your priorities. And that's the only version that actually works. Most people only learn this after they've already signed the papers, and by then, it's expensive to fix. If you want more breakdowns like this, where we simplify real financial decisions without the fluff, then subscribe. It'll save you a lot of mistakes in the long run. At the end of all this, buying your first house isn't about getting everything right. It's about getting one thing right: the alignment between your finances and your life. Not perfect numbers, not perfect timing, just a decision that feels steady, that you can carry month after month without it weighing you down. Because the truth is, you don't need the perfect house to move forward. You just need a situation that lets you breathe, that lets you live, that lets you grow into it, instead of constantly trying to keep up with it. And if you can do that, then you're not just buying a house, you're building something much quieter and much more valuable, a sense of control, a sense of direction, a place that supports your life instead of stressing it. And that doesn't happen all at once. It happens slowly, payment by payment, decision by decision, adjustment by adjustment. So if you're still figuring it out, you're not behind. You're in the middle of the part that actually matters. And that's where better decisions are made. Not quickly, not perfectly, just thoughtfully. And that's more than enough.